Good morning, everyone. My name is Christina Wigrin, and I am here with Stilly Valley Health Connections. I'd like to thank you all for joining us for our March budget-friendly series, which is focused on utilizing leftovers. For everyone who's joining us live, please note that this class is set up in a Zoom webinar format. This means that all of the participants are muted and your videos are turned off so that we can record this presentation. If you would like to leave any questions or comments or otherwise engage, we encourage you to do so by using the chat box or the Q&A box, both which are located at the bottom of your screen. Now I will pass it over to Kelsey from Sound Dietitians, who will be presenting on today's topic. Thank you for being here, Kelsey, and thank you to everyone who has joined us for this class so far. We hope that you enjoy it and learn a lot as always.
All right. Thank you, Christina, and thank you, Stilly Valley Health Connections, for hosting this class. I'm Kelsey. I contract with Sound Dietitians, and maybe you've been here before, but this is our monthly budget series, and we do a different topic of how to save money in our kitchens and on those grocery bills. So today's focus is going to be how to utilize leftovers. And I'm going to do, as you can see, I'm in my kitchen. I'm going to do a little demo of some leftovers that I had in my fridge just to see how quick this can come together, but I'm going to save that for the end. And then as Christina said, I do encourage you all to use the chat box and share ideas. I think we can learn from one another. I always learn from participants. So I really appreciate the more we kind of get people involved, the better. Okay, but what are we going to specifically cover today? We're going to look at why leftovers matter and how it affects money, food waste, and just overall nutrition. Some barriers and how to overcome them. Some food safety essentials, just because I think some food ends up getting wasted because we're not sure if it's still good, or maybe it wasn't stored properly and you go to open it and you're like, oh my gosh, that smells terrible. So we'll go over some tips and just how to keep our food safe in our fridge. Building a balanced meal using a healthy plate. So this is just something I put in there not quickly, but just as a reminder. I know you've all seen the healthy plate. Recently, the USDA has changed kind of how we look at our food, but I still think the plate is a very good visual. And when you're thinking about how to use your leftovers, you want to remember what parts of the plate to fill up with your leftovers so you're getting a balanced meal. We're going to look at and talk over the cook once, eat twice strategy. We'll explain more what that is later. Creative ways to transform leftovers into new meals, and then meal planning tips and free tools, resources that you can go to if you need some ideas. So before I jump into it, though, I was wondering if anybody wanted to share their favorite leftover meal, or if you don't eat leftovers, why? I know a lot of people just don't like leftovers. They don't like how it tastes reheated, or they don't like eating the same thing twice. But if there's a different reason, or just kind of what your personal barrier is, besides the ones that I might share to having leftovers, or maybe there's some leftovers you love. I love leftovers. I think it makes life very simple. But I'm curious of those who joined today, if you are ready to share this morning on this very gloomy day. Okay, so one of the methods I'll talk about is I do cook like extra to plan on having leftovers to either create into a new meal, which is something we're going to go over, or just to reheat and make life easy, knowing like, okay, we're going to eat this 2 nights in a row, or a night before, or a night and then the lunch the next day. So just so I'm not having to cook new meals each time. That's how I like to utilize my leftovers. Emily is saying, I blend leftover chickpeas into cottage cheese, extra fiber, and I don't even taste it. That's brilliant. Love that. A lot of times, like today, the recipe that I'm going to share with you all, I have leftover beans, and I was like, what am I going to do with these? Can't remember why I opened it and only used like a couple tablespoons. So thank you, Emily. Becky said, I love leftovers. Some foods are better the next day. I totally agree with that. Some like casseroles or soups or stews, or the spaghetti sauce that I'm going to reuse today, I think is always better the next day. Okay, thank you. All right, so why leftovers matter. If you guys joined me last month, we talked about food waste, and just kind of as a reminder, 40% of all food in the US is wasted each year. So that's a lot of food and a lot of money that we could be putting back into our pockets, and just saving on our budget month to month or year to year. $1,500 average annual food waste per household. I don't know about you guys, but I could do a lot with an extra $1,500. So if I could figure out how to tighten up my food budget and making sure I'm really utilizing everything and not throwing away just very minimal, that would help so much. And then it's 30 minutes saved per meal using planned leftovers. And we're really going to go over that today because I think time is money, but time is also just precious. We're so busy these days, and it would be nice to get some of the time out of the back from the kitchen and just like out with like our family or our household or whatever it is, and not feel like we're always in here, because I think that's a big barrier for a lot of families. So for families on a tight budget, reducing food is one of the most powerful ways to stretch every dollar. When you plan meals around leftovers, you shop smarter, you cook less often, which I think we all want to do, and we make every ingredient count. So we're going to jump in and see. But I saw a few more comments pop up while I was talking. Leftover soups taste even better the second or third round. Yep. And I love any pasta sauce. But yes, those always taste better the next day or even a couple days later. And we'll go over like about how long they can stay in the fridge. I probably pushed the envelope on that. Okay. So common barriers to using leftovers and solutions. So this comes from, these ideas came from research from a university, I think it's USU. I'm trying to remember. I think it was Utah State University. They have these extensions, and you can go on, and this is reliable information. If you ever want to search something on Google, look up extension programs and their nutrition programs, and you can find a lot of good resources. And I have that at the end of the presentation, some websites, but they're reliable and they have really good ideas. But these are kind of the three main reasons why people avoid leftovers. Safety concerns, we don't know if it's bad and we don't want to get sick. That's understandable. Forgetfulness, they just get lost in the fridge and pushed back further and further, and then we're finding them weeks later and it's really gross. And then flavor fatigue, we just don't want to eat the same thing over and over. So safety concerns, is this still safe to eat? So we're going to talk, I think in the next slide, of learn the 2-hour rule of how to cool hot foods down before you, and then store them, and then how to reheat them to the proper temperature to kill off any bacteria that may have grown. Like I said, with the leftovers, they just get pushed back further and further and we forget about them. So labeling containers with dates, just keeping like a piece of like masking tape or packing tape or something really easy that you can rip off right by your fridge, and you have a Sharpie right by your fridge. Label it. When did you make it? If you're like me and you're like, I don't know if this was last week or the week before, even though it probably shouldn't be in your fridge that long, or even a couple days ago, that can really help. And also I think having that colored label can kind of catch your eye when you're looking in fridge of like, oh, that's something I made. That's probably something I should use, even if it's starting to get pushed further and further back. Try to keep them on that middle shelf at eye level. We talked a lot about in the last class of how to store food in your refrigerator for like the best temperature, and like kind of those pre-made items or leftover items usually are the top or middle shelf is a really good place to keep them. Set a phone reminder. If you use a phone and you use reminders of like, hey, use this sauce by this day, or I had some chicken broth in my refrigerator, and it's going to be part of this demo today. But I had to use the smell test to see if it was still good, but it was perfect because it's going to work well for what I'm making. But I wish I would have labeled it or set a reminder like, hey, you opened this broth this day, use it by this day. Or there's the USDA Food Keeper app. It's an app you can download, and you can be really smart about how you store your food, and then it can tell you like different types of foods of how long they can last in the refrigerator. And then finally, the third most common barrier is flavor fatigue. People just don't want to eat the same thing again. And I totally understand that we just need that mix up of or rotations of foods. Um, but I'm here to tell you today that we don't necessarily have to have it the exact same way. We can repurpose it in a new way, or some of the ingredients from that original meal in a different way, just to kind of switch it up and trick your taste buds a little bit. So you can do an entirely new dish like tacos, soups, fried rice. No two meals need to look the exact same. Or maybe you serve it with like a different fruit or salad, especially if you have kiddos. Like my kiddos can be pretty picky about leftovers. So I definitely have to find a different way to kind of present them so they don't feel like they're eating the same thing. And sometimes that is just changing up one part of the dish, which is usually like the vegetable or the fruit. Oh, I think I went forward instead of backwards. Why is it doing that? Okay. So food safety, the temperature danger zone. Maybe if any of you have worked in restaurants or anything that where you had to get like a food handler's permit, I'm sure you've all seen this little thermometer on the left hand side of kind of what that danger zone is and where bacteria can multiply rapidly. So it's at 40 degrees Fahrenheit to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. If food sits out for longer than a certain, like 2 hours, then this is when bacteria can multiply, and this is when we can get foodborne illnesses. So we really this is where we'll see like picnics or potlucks or something like that, really kind of making sure you're keeping the food to the temperature that it should be served at, whether it's a hot or a cold. Or if you're pulling it out of your refrigerator, it hopefully is being stored below 40 degrees. Most refrigerators are set just right below 40. And then when you reheat it, you're bringing it to 140 degrees or higher. So 2 hour rule, let's review that. Refrigerate all leftovers within 2 hours of cooking. So in hot weather, if your house gets really hot, you don't have AC, which a lot of homes around here we don't, it's 90 degrees or higher in your kitchen, you want to reduce that to 1 hour and get it in the refrigerator. You want to use shallow pans. So if you cook like maybe it's a really big roast or a really big casserole or really large pot of stew, you want to divide it into large batches, no deeper than 4 inches, so the food can cool quickly and evenly. Because what can happen is maybe the top part will cool, but the bottom part won't, or in the refrigerator. So you want to store it in the refrigerator in a nice, no thicker than 4 inches and so it can come to the temperature, and then you could throw everything back into one container if you are cooking something a lot. Use clear containers so you can easily see what's inside, the less chance of forgetting. And then we already talked about the label. You want to refrigerate and use the leftovers. Typically we say 3 to 4 days. Again, that kind of depends on the item. I always say use your nose, use your eyes, like look at the lid, see if there's anything that accidentally grew. I stretch sometimes beyond that, but this is like what the food safety people would say. So use your judgment, use your best judgment, and just remember these temperatures. So storing it below 40, that danger zone's 40 to 140 degrees, and then reheating to 140 or higher. And then having and investing in, they're very inexpensive, some kind of thermometer, digital thermometer that you can easily, let's see, where's my camera, poke into different items. That is a nice way of testing and just seeing where you're at if you're worried. And then my little on the bottom, never leave cooked food on the counter to cool for more than 2 hours. So you always get it in the refrigerator before 2 hours, or freezer. So optimizing your food storage refrigerator versus the freezer. So usually your refrigerator is set between 32 and 40 degrees Fahrenheit. We already talked about storing in the clear, airtight containers. And that airtight is important because oxygen allows bacteria to grow. So the tighter we can create that seal, the less likely bacteria will grow on it. And also, if you're storing anything raw in your refrigerator, ideally, like if it's raw meats, you're keeping it on the bottom shelf. But if for some reason just the arrangement won't allow you, hopefully that will if any raw stuff were to accidentally drip onto the container of cooked foods, that it wouldn't get inside there. But also we could be reheating it really, really hot to kill off any germs that might have happened. But just trying to use an airtight container lid. We're labeling it with a name, and we keep the quick spoiling items at the front so we go through them faster. So let's say you have, I'm trying to think, like fruits and veggies usually can go, especially if you've washed them already, but they're still raw, those can go bad pretty quickly. So you want to keep them up front so you utilize them soon. This isn't really a good picture because they have all these open, but maybe they're cooling them before they put the lids on, and then they label and will store. Most leftovers are consumed within 3 to 4 days, soups up to 4 days, and then cooked meat or poultry, fish, 3 to 4 days. So these are about your storage timelines after they have been cooked. And you can see that, as was shared in the last presentation, how the food is stored in this fridge. The fruits and veggies that are raw and uncooked are on that top shelves. And then we have kind of our pre-made items. And then I bet on the bottom is anything that's raw or uncooked. And then we have our sauces and condiments in the door. And then for the freezer, we want our freezer set to 0 degrees or below. Use the airtight containers or freezer bags, work really well here, especially for labeling. As you can see, this person's very organized. You can see when it was made and the item, and it's on the front, so you're not having to like pull it out and look. You can just read it. You can remove excess air really easily from those Ziploc items. You can freeze in single portions. So if you live alone or you're only one other person, then it's just easy to pull out 1 or 2 portions of whatever it is that you made, cook it up, and then you don't have to worry about, if you're not a person who likes to eat something, the same thing multiple days in a row, then you just pull it out and cook it for when you want it. And then you can keep certain items in the freezer for 2 to 4 months. Your casseroles, your soups and stews, 2 to 3 months, and cooked meat, 2 to 3 months. Does anyone else have any hacks that they want to share about how you store food or things that you didn't think would freeze well, but they actually do, and how you repurpose them? Something I wish I would have done with the spaghetti sauce that I'm going to share with you today is, it was a really large batch that I made, and for some reason we just didn't go through it like I thought we were going to. But because it had already been in my fridge for about 4 days, and I'm going to use it now, but I can't put it in the freezer. It just, from a food safety perspective, you don't want to do that, just because there could be already some bacteria growing, even though I'm going to reheat it. But the general recommendation isn't to do that. But what I wish I would have done when I originally made the recipe was cooled it down and put it in the freezer, like half of it. And then I could have just pulled that out in a month when we're feeling like having spaghetti again. Sure. Okay. So safe thawing and reheating, do it right. So the safe ways to thaw frozen leftovers is, we kind of have to think ahead to make it the safest way, is in the refrigerator, and you plan 1 to 2 days ahead. So let's say you're someone like me and you buy your meat in bulk from like Costco. I have to think like, okay, tomorrow I want to cook chicken. So tonight I'm going to pull it out and put it in some kind of container that it can rest in, and let it thaw in my refrigerator. And really, if I want it to fully thaw, I probably, like it says, plan 1 to 2 days ahead. It probably won't thaw overnight, but maybe by the time in the evening that I'm cooking, it will be thawed enough. If not, then I would bring it over to the cold water bath method, where you submerge a sealed container or Ziploc, whatever it's stored in water, and you change out that water every 30 minutes. And it's a cold water. You don't want to do hot water, because that could start cooking, and that could also bring it to a temperature quickly that could quickly grow bacteria. The microwave, you could use the defrost setting You want to cook immediately after thawing. So you use the defrost setting to get it to break apart or whatever, um, like thaw out. Like let's say it's a soup and it's really hard, and you get it so you can stir it. And then you want to make sure you heat it to that 140 degrees or higher to make sure it's safe to eat. And then during cooking, you can thaw and cook simultaneously for soups and casseroles. So um, that's like kind of like what I just said. If you're putting a frozen block of soup into the microwave, or maybe you're doing it on the stove top, it as it's thawing, it's also coming to heat, and you just want to make sure you bring it to that high temperature so it's safe. Never thought room temperature. Trust me, I'm guilty of this. But we do highly recommend for safety, don't do it. Or in a garage, or I know my mom, she has like a cooler garage, or in the winter, she'll put stuff outside. She lives in Eastern Washington. I'm like, Mom, this isn't safe. Like, it's not a guaranteed temperature. So try not to do that. Bacteria can multiply very quickly. I don't want anybody getting sick. Um, and then the heat to minimum internal temperature. Oh, I'm sorry. A frozen food, not the refrigerator food. We actually want to bring it all the way to 165 degrees. So sorry for the confusion. When it's in the refrigerator and we are bringing it out to reheat, you want to do 140 or higher. For frozen, you want to do 165 degrees or higher. Use the food thermometer, like something I just showed you. Stir microwave foods halfway through because, as you know, they can heat like unevenly in our microwave. So you really want to mix it around and then restart the microwave. Avoid using like a slow cooker or, the slow cooker to reheat something. It just won't get hot enough and it will take a long time to do. So you really want to use your stovetop or your microwave. And then only reheat the portion you plan to eat, because let's say you reheat a really, really large portion and then you eat part of it and then some of it's coming back down, like that bacteria is multiplying and then you're throwing it back in the fridge. So it's just kind of too much back and forth and too many chances for bacteria to grow. So you're going to just do the portion that you plan on eating or you plan on serving to whoever's in your home. Okay, so as promised, when you're trying to recreate a meal from the leftovers that are in your fridge, you kind of want to remember this healthy plate eating model. This one actually isn't the USDA one. I like the demonstration of this one. It's just clearer, and I agree with them that you don't have to have milk with every meal. Some people don't tolerate milk. I would say just get hydration and water. But when you're thinking about like how you're designing a meal, even if it's a soup, if you were to deconstruct it, is half of it or 3/4 of it vegetables or vegetables and fruits, and then a quarter the whole grains, and then another quarter the healthy protein. So that could be plant-based or animal-based. And then I know we don't usually do fruit with every single meal. So then this whole half of the plate would be filled with vegetables if it's like a non-fruit meal that you're serving. But I just wanted to bring this out as a reminder because I don't think we've talked about this in the budget classes for a while. And when we're trying to create a meal that is full of nutrition, but also staying within budget, this is something we can think about or visualize in our heads. Does anybody have any questions about the plate model and how to utilize it? Okay. And I'll be referring to this as I do my demo here in a little bit. So the cook once, eat twice strategy. So this is the idea of maybe batch cooking, which we've talked a lot about in previous classes, but it is a source of leftovers. But then we repurpose it in a different way so it doesn't feel like you're eating the same thing twice. So choosing your staple foods, some kind of protein. If you eat meat, some chicken, ground turkey, or if you don't eat meat, some like black beans, brown rice. These are all items that you could cook a little extra of. Sweet potatoes, broccoli, even maybe some carrots. I don't know, maybe people want to throw out other veggies that they could cook up a little extra of, and then you can repurpose it into a taco, into a soup, into a casserole, the many into like a breakfast quiche. Like there's many different things that we can do with some of these individual ingredients, and we'll go over many examples to give you guys ideas. So you're going to prepare intentionally some extra portions, and then you'll have it to repurpose. I don't know if it was this class, a few classes ago. It was for the takeout class. We repurposed rice for a chicken fried rice on the stovetop, and I purposefully made extra rice, knowing I was going to be doing that demo, but also serving that. And it's a totally different way to have rice than just kind of plain it on the side. And then again, we store a new label, and then we reinvent the meal. So we use components throughout the week to make different dishes. Stir fries, salads are another great way. I think we always think like salads have to be a lettuce and a few standard vegetables. Like when we go to the restaurants, like tomato, cucumber, maybe some onion. But I'm here to say you can have a lot of fun with salad, and it can be very, very versatile, and it kind of can be a dumping ground for many different things in your refrigerator that you're like, oh, I only have half of a serving of cooked carrots left, and I have a few random beans and a little bit of quinoa. Like that all can be thrown on top of a bed of lettuce and be a delicious salad for lunch or for dinner. So when you're using this cook once, eat twice strategy, you're building new meals from ready ingredients, and it's making the week go faster for you. You're saving money because we're reusing items. We're going to go through everything. Nothing is going to get thrown away, and you're just being smarter in the kitchen. So some creative transformations with thinking about protein and how we would maybe batch cook a certain protein and how we could maybe reuse it throughout the week. Chicken, I feel like, is a pretty common one. So let's say you cook up a whole bunch of chicken thighs or chicken breasts, and one night you're just serving it as is with a couple of different sides. You could take that chicken and shred it up and put it into tacos and serve with some salsa. You could get like a can of vegetable soup if you want, or maybe you make your own homemade vegetable soup and then you add the chicken to it, so you know you're getting the protein and you're filling those portions of the healthy plate model. You could make quesadillas. So that's how you would add more protein. Yes, cheese has some protein, but adding a little bit more. You could do stir fry over rice. So just sauteing up some quick veggies, add your chicken, and then have rice. And then, or chicken salad sandwich. That's something I love to do actually with, which I don't think I have that on here, but with any fish left over. I really don't like when I cook fish. I like to eat it fresh that night, and then the next day I really can't stand to like reheat fish. I think it smells bad, it tastes weird, but as like a tuna salad or a salmon salad, chicken salad, just getting a little bit of that mayo, or if you don't like mayonnaise, you could use like a different salad dressing like ranch or poppy seed or even a vinaigrette. Just bring it to moisten the item, maybe add some extra pickles or veggies or whatever you want, and put it on some bread, or just eat it as a salad, delicious way. And then we're not throwing it away. Ham, especially with the Easter holiday coming up. If you celebrate, I feel like I always see a lot of ham in the grocery stores and it's discounted. They know when holidays are coming up and when people like to serve their traditional dishes. So this might be if you like ham, a good time, even if you don't celebrate the holidays, could be a good time to go and buy some and save money on it. But lots of different things you can do with ham. You can put it in a scramble for breakfast. You can put it in some pasta or fried rice, a ham and bean soup. I know my dad likes to make a split pea soup around this time of year and add ham to it. Cheese quesadilla again. Quesadillas, I feel like it's one of those things you can throw anything into, but you're changing up the flavor profile by adding a different protein, maybe like a different veggie in there, and then it just makes it different enough. And then fresh salads, putting it on top of fresh salads to get your protein there. Leftover steak, again, quesadillas, fried rice, a beef stew could be a great way, especially if it got a little tough. And then you can add some veggies. Fajitas, awesome. And then you're just cooking up some like peppers and onions, serving it with a tortilla, or maybe over some ramen and noodles, and then a little bit of veggies, and you're set. And then leftover beans, tacos, burritos, soups, chili, bean dip, egg scrambles, or grain bowls. A grain bowl, I love having this kind of in my back pocket as something to go to, and we're kind of having a version of it, but always having either rice or quinoa or bulgur or something in your refrigerator that you can reheat easily and add stuff on top of random leftovers. It is a very nutritionally balanced and easy way to create a meal very quickly. So I always like to have some kind of grain ready to go to throw any of these other random leftovers on top of. Okay, so speaking of grains, else could we do with leftover rice? We could make the fried rice with the veggies, rice pudding. I've never made this, but maybe this is something one of you have tried. Stuffed peppers. This was actually something I contemplated of doing today, but I actually didn't have any peppers in my refrigerator, so I didn't have time to go to the store, and I really just wanted to utilize what I had on hand. But a really fun way and just can really make a meal taste different is taking whatever protein that you have, whatever grain that you have, figuring out any kind of sauce that you want to mix into it, or you could just season it really well. You cut the top off the pepper, pull out the seeds and kind of like the vein, and then you just stuff it and bake it. And then if you want to melt cheese over it, you can. So good. Totally elevates a meal, makes it feel different, very cozy for these rainy days, and colorful because, as you know, bell peppers can come in many different colors. And if we were in the fall season, you could also do this with squash. And same idea, digging out the seeds and then filling it with your stuffing and baking. It's delicious and it totally changes the meal. Rice soup or congee. I love congee. Traditionally, you would cook it very slow over the stovetop, but you can repurpose already cooked rice for it, and it can be very soothing if you're not feeling well. You could add some ginger or herbs, or top off with some chicken if you're feeling okay and your gut can handle it. You could put like different seasonings in it, and it's just really simple, really soothing. Definitely encourage, if you haven't heard of congee, to like look it up and look up the different versions of it. And then burritos or burrito bowls is very similar to like a grain bowl. And the rice is the base, and then you're using your different veggies and proteins to put in there. Leftover pasta. So let's say you cooked too many noodles up. You could do a pasta soup. If you don't want to just have pasta again, you could, add some kind of broth situation. A pasta stir fry where you're kind of crispifying the noodles just slightly and mixing it with your veggies, and it's all in one dish. You could add it to a baked casserole. You could do a pasta salad, something cold, or maybe a minestrone type soup. That sounds really good. Leftover vegetables, so many things you can do. Again, these are just some ideas for you all. Soups and stews, you could blend it up in a blender and make like a veggie sauce. That's actually something I did with my spaghetti sauce, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. You could put them in your frittata or omelet. You could do roasted veggie bowls. So if you already roasted the veggies, you could just reheat them. Or if they're raw veggies and you don't want to eat them cold, you could roast them up really quickly and then throw it over some rice that maybe you have left over and add one of your leftover proteins. Then you have a complete meal. And then, or saute with just eggs. And leftover fruit, add into smoothies. Smoothies are very easy, and hopefully some warm weather comes our way and you can make a complete meal, and it's just really refreshing. If you have some leftover apples, you could mix it to make some kind of topping for like your oatmeal, or if you want to do like a sweet dish, like some kind of dessert. And then an oatmeal blend for your other fruits, and then a quick compote. So just that would be kind of making something more sweet. And then yogurt parfaits where you layer like your fruit, your yogurt, your granola. And then that's a little meal prep if you want to do a couple of those, and then you'd have them in the fridge for a couple of days. So it's so you can see the price of these different ideas that we kind of threw out earlier. They cost very little to make and they order utilizing what you have. So that veggie fried rice was brought up a few times. You need rice, you need mixed veggies, and then eggs could be your protein. And this is about $1 to $2 a serving, all said and done. So much that's like way less expensive than maybe ordering veggie fried rice at a restaurant, and you're controlling the sodium intake, what type of oils you're using, and just making it nutrient dense for you. A bean and veggie soup is about 75 cents a serving. Chicken tacos is about $1.50 per serving when we make it at home and you utilize our leftovers. A pasta frittata is the pasta, the eggs, and the cheese, and you do like a layering situation. That's about $1 a serving. Loaded baked potato, that never was brought up in any of the examples, but if you have any extra potatoes on hand and you're like, what am I going to do with these? I'm kind of sick of eating them just roasted. I love a good baked potato and then adding whatever, maybe some chicken and maybe you have some red sauce left over and you can put that on top. You don't have to do it the traditional way of just like some butter, sour cream, and chives. Like you can add really anything to that potato as your base and make a delicious meal. But that's about $1.25 per serving. And then veggie quesadillas. Again, we mentioned quesadillas multiple times, but so versatile. And it's, if you have kiddos in the house, an easy way to maybe introduce something new to them and a different veggie, putting it in there and showing them like, hey, this can be good. But they're about $1 per serving. So costs do vary by location and where you live, but always think like back to previous budget classes, like shop your sales, shop the store brands. Um, when you're stocking your pantry and your refrigerator and your freezers, just to keep costs down. Okay, so meal planning with leftovers in mind. A little planning can go a long way. We always talk about in every class how and when to plan and how this can really save time the day of and money potentially the day of, because if we plan a little bit ahead, we're less likely to go buy something that's pre-made and a lot more expensive or eat out. So when you're shopping, choosing versatile base proteins that you know you and people in your household like to eat, and having a couple of those on hand and cooked up, a few base of the grains, so rice, oats, quinoa, whatever it is, and then build, like we talked about, multiple meals from each. Cook in bigger batches. We talked a lot about batch cooking. Freeze part of it, so you have it for later. Make a use first shelf if you have the space in your fridge. If you know, like, okay, everything on this shelf I need to use so it doesn't go bad and then it's at eye level, maybe that can be a helpful way to remember and avoid things getting shoved in the back. Set a leftover night. I know when I'm kind of etching out my calendar for the week and I have a few meals planned and I'm kind of looking at like, okay, this will have some leftovers, this will have some leftovers, and this meal will have some leftovers. Okay, Friday, it's what we call in our house restaurant night, and we just kind of reheat all the random things because there's not ever, for a family of four, there's never a one leftover, at least the way I cook, that we can all eat again. But there's enough items where all of us can pick something, or maybe we have little bits from each dinner, and then we're having restaurant night where we're having many different options. Freeze before it spoils. If you won't use it in 3 to 4 days, make sure you freeze it up in your meal size portions for easy future use. And then keep a running list. So whether that's a sticky note or an app, so maybe something that's posted up on your refrigerator, just knowing what you use, what you need to make sure you buy. We all kind of have staples that we go through week to week. And maybe you have the other side. If this would be another way to avoid not using something, like you have this cooked thing and you can scratch it off when you use it. So then that way you know that it didn't go bad and thrown away. And the goal is to waste nothing and enjoy every dollar you spend on food. I mean, that would be the ultimate goal. So here are some tools. As I mentioned, the USDA Food Keeper app. This app tells you exactly how long any food is safe in the fridge, freezer, or pantry. And you can, any type of phone, smartphone you have, you can download that. This Illinois Extension Leftovers Guide. They have a lot of different information of how to use leftovers, and kind of it's where I pulled information for this presentation. And then the USU extension, Reducing Food Waste, again, another great resource. And then the USDA My Plate, or you can do the Harvard Healthy Plate if you're trying to think about how to construct your meals and recipes to make sure we're eating balanced meals. But the USDA My Plate does have, at least the last time I was on their website, things are rapidly changing. You can like type in an ingredient and it can maybe give you some meal ideas, or I believe they have like a budget meal option area. So myplate.gov. There's also this woman that I follow. I can't remember her name, but her website's called Scrappy Cooking. It's all plant-based. So if you eat meat, you would have to think about how you would incorporate your meat ingredients to some of her recipes. But her website's really cool because you can go in and you can literally type in whatever ingredient is that you have excess in your fridge or leftovers, and she'll pull up different recipes that utilizes that. So she really believes in nothing goes to waste. Even she has recipes for like lemon rinds, like fresh squeezed lemons. It's crazy. She has so much really fun stuff and things I wouldn't ever think about. And let's see, how much time? Maybe if anyone wants to, I guess the ideas are already on here, but if you had chicken, you had rice, is there anything different than what's shown here of what you would do with rice and broccoli and chicken? What are some different meals with the leftovers that you would do? And my answers are already on here, but is there anything that you often make in your house or after listening to the presentation that you maybe would whip together? And it's okay because I accidentally put all of them on here. I meant to do the where I hide it and then click. Okay, since we have about 15 minutes left, I'm just going to transition to just a little demo because I was laying in bed last night. I'm like, what can I do to make the presentation a little bit different? And I feel like the demos are helpful for people to see it in real life than talking off of a PowerPoint slide all the time. So I'm just going to show you what has been sitting in my fridge, and I wanted to come up with something different to make. So I had made this red pasta sauce. I had ground turkey in it. And then I opened a can of cannelli white beans. I really couldn't tell you why I opened them, but I think I was trying to get my daughter to try something new and I was mashing it in something. So I only used like a tablespoon. And then I had a random cup of chicken broth that I just didn't want to dump down the sink. So what I did is I have a rice cooker and I just have a lot of quinoa just dried in my pantry. And I used 1 cup of quinoa to 2 cups of liquid. And so one of the cups of liquid is the broth. And I hear from a lot of people that quinoa can kind of be too earthy, too dirt tasting, but if you rinse it really well and you use broth instead of water, it can make it a lot more flavorful. And then I didn't waste that random cup of broth that I had in the fridge. And what I'm going to make today, because I actually just Googled, I was like, what can I do with leftover spaghetti sauce? Because the ideas weren't flowing for me. And so many ideas came up. And one of my favorite recipes that I know I've demoed in classes before is shakshuka. And there's many different variations of this recipe. But basically the base of it is a red sauce and eggs. And then you can add any veggie. You can put it over any kind of starch that you want to put it over. And very, very versatile. So if you Google shakshuka, you'll find a lot of variations, but that's what I'm going to make a variation for my lunch today. It doesn't have to be breakfasty. So I'm just going to tilt my screen and show you the stove. And I think that you all can see that okay. And I'm just going to put this on a lower heat, add a little olive oil. If you don't eat eggs, tofu can be substituted for the egg part. I'm just gonna add a little bit more. And what we're going to do, I probably didn't have to totally do the oil, but I don't want anything to stick. So this is my tightly sealed clear container, so I know what it was. Looks like my husband must have cooked up some more noodles and thrown it in here. Normally I wouldn't store something like this. I'd have the noodles in a separate container. Maybe we should have him join the classes. I'm gonna add my meat sauce here. And it is kind of thicker, so when it heats up, it will loosen up. And I'm only gonna do this for a serving of one. So this is what I plan for my lunch to be. I'll bring this heat up a little bit just so I can. But in this sauce, I had mentioned earlier, blending veggies into a sauce. The night I cooked this, I had random roasted carrots and broccoli. And but it wasn't enough to serve to everyone. My kids have been really picky about me reheating veggies. And so I was like, okay, they love spaghetti. So I just took a few cans of tomato sauce, and I threw it in the blender with the roasted broccoli and the roasted carrots, and I put some tomato paste, and I just blended it all up and I made it smooth. And then I cooked my meat. I sauteed some onions. And then I think I'm trying to remember what else was in there. I think that was all. And I mixed it all together and then served it over, and they had no idea that they were eating those leftover broccoli and carrots. Okay, so you can see this getting nice and hot. And then I'm going to actually, before I add my egg, so I always keep a container of spinach or arugula. Those are kind of my two favorite greens to add. So I always know I have some kind of extra veggie to add to meals, and it's really versatile and can be added to anything from smoothies to soups to just as a side dish as a salad. So I'm going to add just to boost up the veggie content of this meal and not have to make like a separate salad on the side. I'm going to just shred up. And it also makes it colorful. Whenever I'm working with patients, I'm always telling them to try to eat the rainbow throughout the week. Get as many colors in. I'm going to let this wilt a little bit. And then, like I said, I had some white cannelli beans. So I'm going to add it to this just for some extra protein and fiber. Let's see here. These could also be blended up within the sauce if you wanted to. I think someone mentioned earlier, the cottage cheese, blending the cottage cheese with chickpeas. I could probably do something like that, and that would be a very high protein, and then adding that fiber, like she said. So I just want the spinach a little bit more wilty, but I guess I am going to add a lid, so we can add the egg now. And then the other base of a shakshuka recipe is the egg or tofu if you don't eat eggs. And I'm just going to put it in the middle here to kind of created like a little well. And then we would put a lid on top. My hair. Okay. So this is going to steam it so I know that the white parts of the egg get all cooked. But if I were to deconstruct this meal and think about that healthy plate model, the veggies on the half of the plate would be my spinach. You saw that I added a pretty healthy handful there. And then I also know that the sauce has vegetables in it and some fruit because it's tomato based, right? So I feel confident that I filled up half of my plate with veggies or veggies and fruit. And then my protein is coming from the egg, actually from the beans as well. And then there was meat in the sauce. So I'm feeling really good that my protein section is full. And then my starch section or whole grain section is going to be the quinoa that I put this on top of. So it's done steaming. Maybe I'll get a little bowl of it so you guys can see the final product. Um, let's see here. And now I know I have a complete meal, and this works for any time of the day. I think a lot of people think of eggs as something that needs to be consumed in the morning, but really you can do it any time of the day. And that egg is steaming up. So I'm going to serve this over about a third a cup of quinoa that was steaming up with that leftover chicken broth. I'm going to turn up my heat just a little bit because as you can see, there's still clear in that egg. And then to be very safe, I guess we could even take the temperature of the parts that we know were leftovers and see what it comes to after being in this pan. I don't have quite a tight fitting lid for this, so it's taking longer to steam than normal. But while this is cooking up, it's almost there. Has anyone ever made shakshuka or some version of it? Another version I really like to do is put chopped bell peppers within just a plain tomato sauce that doesn't have any meat. I've done this with tofu before. It's quite excellent. Let's see, where's this at? Okay, so that looks good. Let me see where everybody kind of has a different preference of how cooked they like their yolk. That's still actually, I think I like that texture. Yes, this looks good. Okay, let's get our thermometer just to be safe. I'm gonna dip it kind of in the sauce. I don't know if you guys can read that. Probably too steamy, but we're already at 150. That bean was 143. This bean's 142, 145. So I feel confident that all parts are nice, have been nicely reheated. We're getting kind of a crispy edge here. Might bring down my heat a little bit. Then what I would do is I would serve this over the quinoa. And when I hang up from you guys, my lunch is made. So thank you. And I utilize leftovers, so I feel good about it. And it's something completely different that I haven't had this week. So thank you for joining, and I hope you guys picked up something new. I know it's a lot of information, so you can always just pick one topic or idea and try to implement it into your week and see how it goes. And I hope we are using a lot more leftovers. And these were just kind of some points to remember. But thank you, Christina.
Thank you so much, Kelsey. That looks delicious. I need to go eat some lunch now. Um, and yeah, thank you everyone for coming. I did just want to say that our next budget-friendly class is going to be on 5 ingredient meals. And so that'll be a fun one. And that will be on April 28th. That is also a Tuesday at 10 a.m. And so I will send out that link to register for anyone who is interested with the recording of this class a little bit later on. And lastly, there will be a quick 7-question survey that will appear on your screen after today's class. If you guys have any feedback or ideas for future budget-friendly classes, we would love to hear them.
And does anyone have any questions or anything they wanted to share with the group? We have a few more minutes.
There was a question in the chat. I don't know if had you addressed Diane's question, Kelsey,
Let's see. Maybe.
determining if food is still safe to eat without using smell.
Oh, I didn't see this one. I'm sorry, Diane. Okay, I lost my sense of smell years ago. Apparently, the viral infection. What are other clues to look for to determine if food's still safe to eat? Fair. I visually just to see if there's anything obviously growing, then we'd throw that away. But to be safe, I would go by time that you cooked it if you can't rely on your sense of smell, because I really feel like that's really just the best indicator besides knowing the time that it was stored correctly. Unfortunately, there's not really anything between, like a little bit visually, but like we smell things before maybe there's growth, if that makes sense. So yeah, unfortunately I would just go by the time and labeling like we were talking about throughout the class.
Perfect. And then there was another question in here. Towards the end of the presentation, you referenced a website.
Oh, I hear, I'll put it in the chat. um Scrappy Cooking, I don't know her name, but if you look up Scrappy Cooking, if you Google that, it will, yes, Plant You, thank you. That's the one.
Wonderful. If anyone else has questions, pop those in.
And then for Joanne, for the handout, I can send Christina the presentation if that would be helpful. Okay.
Perfect. Yes,
Okay.
Kelsey, if you're able to send me those slides, I can get those out with the recording as well.
Okay. I will do this when I hang up.
Perfect. Becky said give them lots of new ideas. That's exciting.
That's good. Good. I love to hear that.
Perfect. Well, if we have no other questions, do you have anything else you'd like to add, Kelsey?
No, I don't think so.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Another lovely class. Thank you to everyone who attended. And I hope to see you at our 5 ingredient meal class at the end of April.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. Have a good week, everyone.
Bye.